4 things suspiciously missing from Google security and privacy settings. So first of all, why should you care about such things? Well, it's about you. It's your information, and Google shouldn't be able to process information about you that may harm you in some way, either today or in the future. So this is really about your fundamental human rights. And the privacy legislation in Europe, for example, the GDPR, stems from the Charter of Fundamental Human Rights. There are other privacy legislations around the world, but for the sake of reference, we will only reference the GDPR in the rest of this session. And so this is a good place to start. And if we go to the Google privacy policy, as we've done here, and the easiest way to do this is just type in on the Google browser, privacy policy, Google privacy policy, and you'll get here. Another key one is Article 17, the right to erasure. Now, I had a real trouble finding out where I could go to for right to erasure. And the way that you do it, if you go back to the privacy policy, go into the FAQ section, there's a link called web form on the 3rd paragraph that you can click to exercise your right to be forgotten. So this is your right to be forgotten on Google search. So if there is something about you on Google search that you don't think is appropriate, that's related to you as an individual, you can request for it to be forgotten. It doesn't mean that they have to take it down. It means that you are exercising your right to request the removal of that information. The easiest way to find this web form is actually just to type in right to erasure or the right to be forgotten on Google. Okay, so we're going to start talking about some of the key things that Google don't do so well on their privacy policy. Some things I feel that they've either missed or deliberately missed. So one of those things is, and you've all seen it on websites, is the cookie banner. That cookie preference banner that you typically see on the bottom of a web page where it says you need to update your cookie preferences. So this is in line with the GDPR Article 7, conditions of consent, and also the EU Privacy Directive. So now you have to be able to select whether you want third-party cookies to land on your computer, and you need to be able to demonstrate that you've given consent freely before you enter those websites. So you'll not find this on the Google privacy policy, unfortunately. I couldn't find it anywhere. And actually, they do have a page where they talk about how Google uses its cookies. It does talk about things like your browser settings. So if you go on technologies and you go and click here on how Google uses cookies from the privacy policy, you can get a short introduction here. And it can talk about how to manage those cookies in your browser. Now, best practice is to have a cookie banner of some description, and for you to be able to select those preferences and give your consent to. Actually, Google have come into a lot of trouble with this recently. So if we click on and see the CNIL, which are the French data protection authorities, they've recently given Google a fine of a total of 100 million euros for this exact thing. So not obtaining prior consent and dropping and cookies and without providing adequate information onto users' devices in France. So it's already happening. They've already received fines for this exact thing. So it'll be interesting to see how this develops in the future. Another thing that I couldn't find very easily on their privacy page was, in a good privacy policy, you typically see the data protection officer's contact information, or a way to access the data protection officer. Now, the data protection officer's role is to help the company comply with privacy legislation, but also they're also a gateway for data subjects, i.e. me and you, to request information and process any other data subject requests. And so they're a key member of that team to process all those activities. And typically you see an email address, a phone number on the privacy page, on the privacy policy page, to make it easy for you to do so. Now, I couldn't find that very easily. What you have to do is go to the Compliance and Cooperation with Regulators subsection of the privacy policy. Here you can see right at the bottom of that section, you can contact Google and our data protection officer. You click this link. Then you come to sort of a privacy help center. Then you have to scroll down a bit further, get help with privacy related questions. Contact Google's data protection office. This is another button you have to click here. And then there's a web form that you have to click. So it's a bit of a palaver to be able to know where to contact the data protection officer. On one hand, I can understand it. They don't want to be inundated with requests. But on the other hand, they're kind of missing the key principle of privacy legislation, making it easy for data subjects to be able to contact the data protection officer is one way of being authentic and communicating in the spirit of privacy legislation with the data subject. It's really about the data subject. It's about their information. And I feel that they've made this maybe intentionally harder for people to make requests than it should be. Another thing that was missing is a good privacy policy should also have some guidance on where to complain to, and that was also missing. So if you're in the EU, for example, you can go onto the European Data Protection Board, and on their website you'll see a list of members or authorities. So depending on where you're located or where you've made your complaint, you can find the most appropriate data authority to make your complaint to. And so if you're in Belgium, for example, and you can go here. If you're in France, you can go to the CNIL, and there's the email address and website address that you can contact directly to make your complaint. If you're in the UK, it's the ICO. Even though we've left Europe, we have our own version of the GDPR, which is basically the same. There are some small differences with regards to data transfers, but we won't get into that. In terms of data subject rights, it's virtually the same thing. So for the UK citizens, it's the ICO website that you need to go to. And for European citizens, you can just go on the EDPB website here to make your complaint. So I hope you found this video useful. Any questions or comments, please make them below. Happy to answer any questions you have, and looking forward to seeing you on the next one. Thank you very much.